All right, settle in, buttercups, because it's time for a deep dive back into the hilariously chaotic lives of our favorite Central Perk crew. Grab your coffee, your comfy pants, and maybe a lobster or two, because we're about to recap all the unforgettable moments from Friends that made us laugh, cry, and wonder if anyone actually paid rent.
The nanny of the top football star was gonna sneak in and enjoy the super luxurious bathroom while the master was away. But the next second, a strange sound came from inside the villa. The nanny quickly picked up a gun and went to check, only to find it was the multi-millionaire next door. He seemed to be trying to steal the championship ring. Facing the gun, the man could only confess that he was unemployed, and stealing from the rich had become his new career.
I'm gonna keep your secrets. We're partners.
From then on, the two struck a deal and vowed to rob every rich neighborhood out there. The male protagonist, Cooper, used to be a typical successful person. After graduating from university, he entered a financial company with excellent grades and became a professional stock manager. After more than 20 years of hard work, now Cooper had become an elite rich man and had a happy and harmonious family. However, at this moment, an accident suddenly occurred. Cooper accidentally discovered that his wife had an affair with his good friend, John. Cooper really couldn't accept such a life, so he resolutely chose to divorce his wife. But because he was busy with work all day long, and completely neglected the care of his children, so much so that they all chose to stay with their mother. His several children were all underage now, so Cooper needed to pay a high amount of child support every month, and the house was also awarded to his wife by the court. Cooper could only watch his good friend John and his wife Manny move into the house that originally belonged to him, and Cooper still had to pay the mortgage. Cooper was very sad about this. He could only go to the bar to relax. At this time, Cooper returned to the single life again. He also had a decent and high-paying job. Naturally, it attracted many young girls. Just when Cooper thought he could start anew, he didn't expect that this was actually a trap set by the company's senior management during his low point in life. The girl who had an in-depth conversation with Cooper turned out to be a new employee of the company. In this way, Cooper violated the company's regulations, having an intimate relationship between colleagues, so the senior management decided to fire Cooper. So one day, Cooper was suddenly invited by his boss to take a bath outside. He thought that the other party wanted to comfort him and encourage him to find his beloved again, but he was told by the other party that he was fired for violating the company's regulations. The reason for inviting him outside was just to prevent Cooper from destroying the customer information in his account out of anger. Now Cooper had completely become a homeless person. However, if it was just this, Cooper wouldn't be panicked. The information of those customers had long been imprinted in his mind. Even if he left this company, he was still a top stock manager, so Cooper didn't lose heart. He went to the companies of some customers and prepared to find another way out. However, all his former customers actually refused Cooper. It turned out that his former boss had actually spread the story of his intimate relationship with his colleague throughout the entire industry. Now these customers were full of vigilance towards Cooper. Of course, if it was just this, there would still be companies willing to take in Cooper. After all, he was really very capable. But at this moment, Cooper realized that he had been trapped by his boss at some unknown time and had signed a strict non-compete agreement. Once those companies hired him, they would face sky-high liquidated damages, and the time limit of this non-compete agreement was a full 2 years. If Cooper really wanted to wait until that time, I'm afraid he would starve to death before that. Cooper rushed into his former boss's office, trying to force the other party to give up, but he was lectured by the other party.
Biggest mistake was thinking any of this was ever yours. It's not yours if you can't keep it.
Finally, Cooper was driven out by the security guards. Cooper had nothing at this moment. The little compensation given by the boss was very meager. With the need to pay child support and the mortgage, it was only enough to support Cooper for half a year. However, there weren't just these two things in his life. In order to fit into the circle of the wealthy, Cooper became a member of a tennis club. The membership fee every year was hundreds of thousands of dollars. In addition, there were also various social interactions among the neighbors. Most people still didn't know that he had lost his job. Each gathering was a large expense. At this time, there was only sorrow left in Cooper's heart. Moreover, his daughter hoped that Cooper could buy her a drum set. This was another considerable expense. Cooper was very hesitant. His ex-wife, Manny, said that her current lover, John, could pay for it. When Cooper thought that this guy not only stole his wife, but also wanted to take away his daughter now, he was immediately very angry and said that he would buy the drum set for his daughter. Then Cooper felt a bit regretful. He didn't know where to get the few $1,000s to buy the drum set for his daughter. Just at this moment, his neighbor, Pete, held a party. Cooper also received an invitation from him. In order to maintain his dignity, Cooper had to attend. However, he found that Pete had actually invited his ex-wife and her new lover over, and in front of many guests, He brought up the matter of their divorce, and also specifically mentioned that John and Manny were living in the house that Cooper had bought, but he still had to pay the mortgage. Such an interesting joke made everyone present burst into laughter. Only Cooper, who was being laughed at, was filled with anger in his heart. He resolutely sneaked into his neighbor Pete's house, intending to teach the other party a lesson, to avenge the humiliation that Pete had brought to him, but he accidentally discovered Pete's drawer filled with famous watches and tens of thousands of dollars in loose cash beside it. At this moment, Cooper suddenly had a new idea. Perhaps he could make the other party pay for the humiliation with money. It was just that it was his first time to take money from his neighbor's house. Cooper wasn't very familiar with it, and only dared to take a small roll of money, and afterwards, he always felt uneasy deep in his heart. But soon, Cooper threw this feeling to the back of his mind. He came to his ex-wife's place with a brand new drum set, ready to give his daughter a surprise. But as soon as he opened the door, he received a shock from his daughter.
Oh, for God, that!
Cooper didn't expect that. His underage daughter would bring a hoodlum boy home and had an intimate relationship with him. The more Cooper thought about it, the angrier he became. He immediately turned around and left with the drum set. The hoodlum boy saw that something was wrong. Surprisingly, his first reaction was not to run away, but to quickly pull up his pants and explain to Cooper. Such an unwise decision naturally led to the expected outcome. Cooper was so angry that he hit him. When his daughter saw her father knocking her boyfriend to the ground, she immediately scolded Cooper for being too violent and rude. Then she comforted her boyfriend, who was lying on the ground right in front of her father. Cooper was almost furious when he saw this situation. However, before he could say anything, Cooper's phone suddenly rang. It turned out that something had happened to his sister, Misha. Cooper's sister suffered from severe depression and anxiety due to her divorce many years ago. She often went to her ex-husband's place on her own, and then played and sang in front of his door for a whole day. Now Misha showed up again. The other party immediately contacted Cooper to take his sister back. Looking at Misha's situation, Cooper felt very sympathetic but helpless. After sending Misha back to her place, Cooper also returned to the villa he was temporarily renting. He couldn't reveal the fact that he was unemployed, but the living expenses now were really too high. Cooper had to find a way to get some money as soon as possible. At this time, he thought of his neighbor Pete again. The other party often went on trips. Now the villa was unoccupied again. In addition, this was a wealthy community. There had been no crime here for decades. People's awareness of protection was very lax, making it very suitable for stealing things. So Pete put on his darkest suit as a nightgown. He quietly came to Pete's place in order to prevent accidents. Cooper even greeted a few times when he entered the door. Of course, as he expected, there was no response at all. Cooper went to the place where Pete had stored his famous watches before. He had already set his eyes on that Patek Philippe watch, because Pete hadn't worn it for a long time. According to Cooper's understanding of these wealthy people, as long as it wasn't worn for a long time, it basically meant that he had forgotten about it. It was simply an excellent target. After a long advertisement introduction, Cooper finally put this famous watch into his pocket. Then he took away all the tens of thousands of dollars in loose cash beside it. However, just at this moment, because Cooper was really not skilled enough, he actually triggered the alarm in Pete's house. When the police were about to arrive, Cooper had a sudden idea. He put on Pete's pajamas and messed up his hair, opening the door for the arriving police with sleepy eyes. Then he made up an excuse.
By tomorrow morning, my wife must have given you the wrong day when she called it in.
Because there had been no crime in this community for decades, the police would never have thought that the person in front of them was actually a thief. So they really believed Cooper's words and immediately led the team back. Successfully stealing for the first time filled Cooper with confidence. However, if he wanted to relieve his current economic situation, he still had to sell this Patek Philippe watch. Cooper went to a local store. After the other party verified that it was genuine, they offered a price of $180,000, but they required Cooper to show the purchase certificate of the watch. Cooper definitely couldn't produce such a thing. Just as he was about to leave, the other party gave Cooper a business card. This was a black market merchant named Luna. Cooper successfully sold that watch to the other party. Although the price was greatly reduced and was only $60,000, it could still help him solve his urgent need. After that, Cooper had a good time for a while. I don't know if it was the influence of the previous theft. Now when he attended the parties of the wealthy, he always inadvertently looked at their expensive jewelry, secretly calculating how to steal and sell them. Just at this moment, an opportunity came to Cooper again. The daughter of another wealthy person in the community had recently been competing with Cooper's daughter for a college scholarship, so that wealthy person proposed to decide the final recipient of the scholarship through a tennis match. Cooper immediately realized that in such an important scene, that wealthy person would definitely take his whole family to cheer for his daughter, and at this time, his villa would be empty. So, Cooper took the opportunity when they were all at the tennis court to secretly come to that wealthy person's residence.